Can you imagine a world without the United States? What if the Union Jack still flew across North America? What would life be like? How different would the world be? Join history's forked path as we turn the page to a history never written. What if history took a different turn, where the New World's greatest revolution failed? In 1776, the 13 North American colonies declared independence from Britain, sparking an 8-year war. What if the dream of independence didn't come true? Would North America become a giant second Canada? In the 1770s, widespread discontent spread through the 13 North American colonies due to Britain's harsh tax policies. From the Stamp Act to the Tea Act, each policy added fuel to the fire of resistance. Colonial leaders attempted to negotiate for autonomy, but were frequently denied or unsuccessful. Conflict erupted, with the first skirmishes at Lexington and Concord igniting full-scale war. Colonial forces, though lacking experience and equipment, fought valiantly under brilliant leadership. In real history, support from France was a crucial factor in the colony's victory. The decisive victory at Yorktown forced Britain to recognize independence, giving birth to a new nation. But in our scenario, the situation has changed. The dream of independence did not materialize. Let's explore this fascinating hypothesis and its unpredictable consequences for history. First hypothesis: the British Empire learned from its mistakes, concentrating enormous military resources in North America. With a brilliant general, British forces suppressed resistance, cut off supplies, and divided the colonial forces. Second hypothesis: lacking French intervention, the colonies became isolated and lacked sufficient resources. France was preoccupied with internal affairs and could not intervene. The colonies were isolated, facing a mighty empire. When the flame of revolution was extinguished, a wave of suppression and administrative reform swept through the colonies. The royal government established a tighter governing system, dividing the colonies into smaller units. British troops increased their presence, continuously monitoring to suppress any seeds of rebellion or discontent. Local councils were abolished, with direct administration implemented from London, leading to a loss of autonomy. Leaders who had advocated for independence were arrested or forced into exile. Thinkers were suppressed. Censorship intensified greatly, restricting freedom of speech. Many loyal colonists were rewarded with land and titles, creating a new pro-British aristocracy. Society shifted markedly from an egalitarian spirit to a hierarchical structure with a new aristocracy. The colonial economy was restructured to serve imperial interests, with tightened tax and trade policies. Industries were restricted from competing with the mother country, hindering independent development. Natural resources were exploited to serve the British market, focusing on agriculture and raw extraction. This led to slower development, without the strong wave of industrialization seen in real history. The colonies became dependent on goods manufactured in Britain, limiting local innovation. Trade with other European powers was restricted, tightly controlled by the royal government. The exodus of independent supporters created a large wave of migration. Many sought unexplored lands in the West or neighboring countries, altering demographics. The western frontier areas, once conflict hotspots, were now strictly controlled by the British Army. A system of forts and military garrisons was built across the West, consolidating royal power. British troops pushed indigenous tribes deeper inland, protecting colonial interests. Treaties were established to consolidate royal power defining boundaries and control. Britain strictly managed land claims, preventing disputes and spontaneous expansion. Without a Louisiana territory to sell, this vast region remained in French hands. The French-speaking population in Louisiana faced new integration challenges under French control. It could later be acquired by Britain or ceded to another European power, altering geopolitics. This completely altered the geopolitical landscape of the North American continent and the world. Britain maintained greater global influence, with no significant rival in the Western Hemisphere to compete against. Over 100 to 200 years, the North American continent developed differently, becoming the British North American Empire. This vast territory stretched from the Atlantic to the Pacific. This bloc gradually developed autonomy, similar to Canada, but with a larger scale and influence. Regional identities still existed, but were tightly unified under British royal rule. Strong infrastructure development connected vast territories from east to west. The political system followed the British constitutional monarchy model, with a Governor-General representing the Crown. Local legislative bodies had limited power, with major decisions resting with the Westminster Parliament. A unique British North American identity gradually formed, blending British traditions and indigenous geography. Political debates focused on greater autonomy within the framework of the British Empire.
When the system is so resistant to change?
British culture dominated more strongly, with English as the main language, and education and law bearing a strong British imprint.
Order
The
in the
education
court.
system, laws, and customs all bore a strong imprint of the British Crown. New cultural
a
forms
most
with an American
unfortunate
flavor
turn
were
of
restricted,
events.
giving way to
Unfortunate
British
perhaps,
traditions.
but not unforeseen.
Close ties with British art, literature, and traditions were strengthened and promoted. The American dream of freedom did not exist. Instead, it was a royal dream, emphasizing loyalty. Public holidays celebrated British monarchs, and imperial events were solemnly observed. The issue of slavery would have been resolved earlier, as Britain abolished slavery throughout its empire in 1833. This could cause internal conflict, but would avoid a bloody civil war like that
We
of
will not
American
be
history.
silenced.
Society
morning.
gradually integrated
beautiful
former
day.
slaves, creating a more diverse community. Without an independent United States superpower, the global balance of power would change significantly. Britain would maintain its superpower status longer, with no significant competitor in the Western Hemisphere. New regional powers might emerge in South America, filling the power vacuum. The Anglo-French rivalry would continue longer, without U.S. intervention altering it. Britain would focus on maintaining its vast global empire, prioritizing strategic colonies. Westward expansion would occur under British control, potentially slower and different. The western lands would become new provinces of the British North American Empire, planned in an orderly fashion. So there it is, a North America where the British flag still flies. A world with entirely different stories and heroes. A historical prospect where sometimes we must ask ourselves, would it have been a better path or merely different? Thank you for joining History's Forked Path. Share your thoughts on this what-if hypothesis.